Hello, this is Mark. I'm going to talk about why consumerism has potentiated the misdiagnosed cases of ADD and ADHD. Essentially, ADD and ADHD, it's a condition where the mind, or there's a lack of communication or receptivity of the dopamine receptor to dopamine, and generally there could be also less dopamine output. And if the receptors are insensitive to the effects of dopamine, it causes a lack of reward signaling, and due to this problem, the person with ADHD, to compensate, they have to focus on heavy interest in order to get a normal reward. Otherwise, if they're focused on menial tasks, it's going to be extremely hard to maintain the focus and attention span. So the other issue, it's with the prominence of ADD and ADHD today, it's been escalating throughout the years. But if you look back, we had progressed a rapid increase in the technological advance of our schooling system and just society in general. We have access to multiple domains, social media platforms, TV, video games, news. It's global. We have global news, and way back in the day, just everything was localized, and now the events are being compressed, the micro events of life being compressed or tending towards zero, and that's causing, if you think of life as a line segment, and you got micro events that are basically created by, you can define them differently, but it's just like you could think of a micro event as you're in one local T, and such as a classroom, for instance, would be an event. And when you shift domains, or you're shifting to different areas, that's going to be considered a unique or different event. So now, due to the heavy responsibility load and all the fast-paced society that is predicated in the U.S., we are, by condensing these events, we're going to escalate the problem with distraction if the body, or if the mind isn't adapted to that state. And this is especially true, in the school system. The schooling system is a convergent system. It's meant for people who have strengths in convergent thinking, who are conscientious, who have the interest. You have to have the interest in the subject to begin with if you're going to, have the improved grades, or be able to succeed in that environment. And overall, you need to conform to the system, whatever the teacher, whatever, abide by the rules and so forth. And some people, naturally more divergent thinkers, it's a spectrum. So anytime you tend towards the extreme, and you got the creative people who are very divergent, they tend to drop out of school. And you got the convergent thinkers who tend to do very well and obtain the reward. Because for a convergent thinker, you just need to extract whatever is relevant for the problem, and therefore the time is condensed greatly to achieve the desired output. For a divergent thinker, they're going to go in multiple different directions like a meandering river, and just may be able to arrive at the multiple solutions to the problem at hand, but it's going to take longer, and they're not going to get rewarded in the same way, and the probability being incorrect is going to increase, and therefore the grade's going to go down, and the reward, and it's going to diminish, and so forth, and their attentiveness is also going to go down, because if anytime you're in a classroom setting where it's predicated on convergent style thinking, it's going to be harder to maintain focus in those domains. So yeah, it's definitely, the school system has created has escalated the problem, increased the rate of diagnosis of ADD, or misdiagnosed cases of ADD and ADHD, and also it's very, very easy to be prescribed vyvanse or adderall. The screening it's not a good system, because anyone can cheat the system and act like they're in a 10, ever act like they don't focus, and then your friends and your family can answer that questionnaire to cater to your desired result of obtaining the medication to do well in school. And partly the reason is just because someone is more so divergent thinker, they're scattered, they have a scattered brain, it's gonna make, that's gonna, those effects are gonna mask ADD and ADHD. It's gonna seem like you have the condition, but honestly, the problem with like these conditions today is they're very loosely defined, and you have psychiatrists or psychologists who, they're just defining these terms, and we're learning along the way, but there's a huge overlap between multiple conditions, and so it's very hard to get, they're trying to converge on the answer, and trying to get the diagnosis, but again, it's loosely defined, it's not absolute, and it's also tied heavily to the pharmaceutical industry so they can generate income. So, when this all comes into play, it's no wonder why ADD and ADHD are misdiagnosed. Of course, the doctors will, it's, of course, when you're, generating a lot of income, and the whole screening system is very, very deficient, and anyone could get access to adderall and vyvanse. But the problem is, if you do not have ADD or true like defect of the receptivity in the brain, and you don't have the lowered output of dopamine and so forth, you run risk of increasing dopamine beyond the threshold that can promote damage to the brain, and it can lead to psychosis, irritability. It can lead to a host of negative symptoms, and I experienced this myself. I took dopamine for 2 weeks, and I became extremely dysphoric, irritable. I lashed out people. I punched my steering wheel out of rage. I was very, I don't know if I went psychotic, but I definitely acted, I was escaped reality, and, I was inside my own mind, so it's in my own world, so it's definitely has different effects on different people. It wasn't good for me, obviously. Some people may have great benefit, but it's good to be aware of whether or not you have the condition, and not to go forward and try to. It's always good to try to get with someone who understands the condition well, and the symptoms, and there's always different paths that you can take. Taking the medication is an easy route, the path of least resistance, but it's only a short term. It's like putting a band-aid on it. It just covers up the symptoms temporarily, and then when you get off of it, it's going to cause everything to become worse, and it's going to cause shock to the body because your body's outside of equilibrium. But naturally, when you do consume the medication, your body wants to achieve the natural equilibrium state. So what ends up happening is the amplitude of effects is going to be magnified initially, and then it's going to converge back to equilibrium. So the effects are going to diminish over time, and then your doctor's going to tell you you need to take more, so a heavier dose. So then when you create to compensate and to get the same effects, so you're going to try to go back up to where you were, and your body's going to fight hard to try to balance or rebalance or restabilize, and it's going to build a tolerance. So this process is, could potentiate liver toxicity and so forth, and it's and then when you get off of it, of course, once you've been acclimated for so much time, it's probably not going to be a huge effect, but it can definitely, if you're not using it very long, it can cause shock to the body, and it can cause the up-down cyclic effects, and anytime you deal with that, it's going to at the rebound effects, it's reverting back to your equilibrium, or typically you revert below equilibrium state, and then you're going to go back up and converge back up to equilibrium, and that can be a problem because going off vyvanse and adderall, liberate depression and so forth, and cause suicidal ideation, and I experienced some of that myself, and it's definitely not good to go on those medications without consent with a specialist, and that's just my viewpoint. Everyone else would have a different perspective, but yeah, these conditions, it's like I said, the ADHD mind or true is tend to be very creative, and very they can focus on the passions. It's very important that we have the variation of all the different levels of the mind. Like people with ADHD have benefits to society. People are convergent thinkers. They solve the problems that the divergent thinkers create, or the ideas, so forth, the idea. And most people are on the spectrum, or in between. They have a mix of convergence and divergence. But as you go towards the extreme on divergence, that means the level of your convergent thinking converges to zero. And this is only because, it's how much time and how much energy, how much investment you have focused in this domain, over time. And anytime you focus on a domain for a very long time, you acclimate, you adapt to it. It becomes very hard to break out of this habit or this mode of thinking. And, that's why, follow, the natural laws of nature. If your body or if your mind, they run a certain, if it flows, everything flows a certain direction, and, you should follow that and not try to change who you are, your persona, and so forth. Just, be comfortable in your own skin. And yeah, that's basically all I had. I may have went on too many tangents, but tried to get the point across that, ADD and ADHD is definitely misdiagnosed. It's a problem today, and hopefully people become more aware and, try to find other avenues, or try to find other solutions. It's always good to go past obstacles and fight against the resistance, because inevitably that's going to give you more reward in life when you strive towards something. And the journey along the way is what's really important, not the end goal. Like when you reach the end goal, if you translate all the way over here to the end, you're not going to get that substance. So that journey, the memories, the whatever, even the failures, everything accumulates, but a negative can become a positive. It depends on your own mentality, your state of mind. You can transcend it and, go towards more positive mindset, and over time, as you progress in life, because that's what humans, we're innately designed to keep progressing and expand, just like the universe expands. And our consciousness is just like the space that is exhibited in the universe. Our thoughts, ideas, our abstractions, the concepts and manipulations. Some people, you have rotations, translations, everything in your mind. It's expansive space, just like the universe. And that's, our goal is to strive towards, understanding, or deepening understanding, and not to label everything as truth, or, 1 or 0 in like binary code. It should be, we're striving for deeper understanding, and that's, to me, is the critical point. And yeah, that's, hope this all helped.